We're alive.
Okay, we are live. We are taking up Tuesday, 2:30 again. That's an act relating to Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplement insurance plans. And we've got Emily Brown with us. And Emily,
Hi.
I think we're here to tell you the bill probably doesn't have life support anymore.
Okay.
I think it's dead. But one thing we would like to salvage out of that is the public information program.
Yeah.
And I don't want to send out a bill telling you to do that unless I can get some money, which is highly unlikely. But, you know, yeah, I mean, if we could get some money, what can you do now with your resources, and what, if we got you some money, could you do?
So, Emily Brown for the Department of Financial Regulation. Well, why don't I tell you what we've done, and then I can kind of tell you what we want to do. And then the feasibility of that. So right now, the kind of extent of our education campaign for Medicare Advantage is really limited, has been limited to marketing. So we put out some consumer notifications. I think the last one was in 22. We did one in 2019, kind of making consumers aware of the open enrollment period, be careful of, scams, fraud, those types of issues. I think I talked last time I was in here about the department has started conversations around having like a website or a webpage where we can direct people. So there are a few different options for funding for that. One, which nothing has been settled yet, but one option is that we actually have, and I'm blanking on the name of the fund, it's the Securities Restitution,
Whistleblower Protection and Financial Services Education.
Yes, and what that,
Something in housekeeping.
Yes.
With that.
yeah, right, exactly. And so that fund can be used for education and financial education and just general education and outreach. So we've been looking into what access do we have to those funds and what would that look like. We're still looking at it, and the reason I don't have an answer for you today is because there's other needs on the fund right now with a securities restitution and other issues that are coming up. So we haven't really landed as a department on what that amount will look like. But we do think there should be some funding available from that. And that would allow us to establish, work with the Vermont media team and establish a website so that we can get that information more publicly facing and accessible. And, we do have an outreach team or kind of an informal outreach team at the department who they go to Scam Jam, they go to the over 55, event that happens in South Burlington. So we do use those opportunities to, reach out to consumers and, a lot of times we might have flyers or pamphlets. Some of them are put out or published by CMS, who's obviously the overseer of the Medicare Advantage market. So we definitely use those opportunities to reach out and try to educate consumer. So that's kind of what we're doing right now and what we want to do. Anything above and beyond that would probably require additional funding, I imagine.
What kind of funding is he thinking of?
For the website?
Yeah.
I think we were thinking somewhere between 30 and 50,000. Very rough estimate, because again, we haven't engaged with any vendors at this point. So that's kind of a number with a question mark behind it.
Okay. I'm going to give, I wish we could do a math now if we want to turn.
Oh, no.
The Medicare Advantage people.
Yeah.
Do Do you have any information or do anything like with the area office on aging, the whole?
So actually, that's something I wanted to speak to because currently, while we definitely are a front line for a lot of folks in Vermont on insurance issues. The SHIP program receives funding from the federal government to do the education outreach for Medicare Advantage.
SHIP
And
is,
the SHIP is, we figured out the acronym last time, it's the Area Agencies on Aging. And the SHIP is the State Health Insurance Program,
okay,
which is federally funded, so they currently receive federal funds.
to help people understand the
Exactly,
risks.
Yeah.
Because they are located in the office on the area office. The local
yes,
senior. centers.
exactly, yep. So they are receiving funding, I don't know what that amount looks like. But they are technically under, funded by the federal government to do education outreach for Medicare Advantage.
Who gives them the material to tell them what they should be educated?
That's a good question, I'm not sure, it's not
I would
us.
not like it to be given by the Medicare Advantage plan.
Yeah, I don't know,
I would assume the feds have some. But since Medicare Advantage is a federal program, I'm sure they're going to ask you to tell people that it's very expensive to get back into Medicare.
yeah,
And that, yeah, this is your last shot and realize that if you need a heart doctor in 20 years,
right.
the nearest one might be Boston.
Yeah, one thing, I just wanna talk about too was, so we regulate Medicare supplement insurance and in our regulation, we do have, so if you're on a Medicare supplement plan, there are, disclosure requirements that insurers are supposed to comply with if someone is on med sup, but then is looking to get off. So there are some narrow guardrails right now that, disclosure requirements that insurers are supposed to be using and kind of a suitability test, right? Looking
Yeah.
at, okay, so,
Sell the right insurance.
Right,
to the right
exactly.
person.
yeah, and then our unfair trade practices law, which applies to brokers and agents selling Medicare Advantage products applies. So that's, no coercion, no misleading advertising. The limitation that we have is that we need a complaint to
To do anything.
to kind of then say, okay, we can pinpoint this issue and take an enforcement action. So unless we're receiving a lot of complaints, which again, we're receiving kind of. Was I supposed to do this, more educational type
From the
instances? Not from the brokers, from individuals, right, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, for some people, you may actually need someone, like we had navigators before, to
Right.
walk you through the steps in your
Yes.
walk. Do you
Yes.
understand what that means?
Yeah.
That in-network doctor.
right, yeah. And I think technically the SHIP program is supposed to kind of be playing that navigator role, but I imagine there's probably a lot of demand and.
Okay, so maybe we should have the ship
Yeah.
people in.
Yeah,
Do you know, do they have an office?
good question. I wanna say it's in Barry, but I don't know why I think that.
Okay, and there's an area office on aging in there.
Maybe that's where they're out of, yeah,
So maybe if we can call Barry and ask them, tell them we want to talk to who's in charge of the ship program.
yeah. So, and we have worked with them in the past on communications and
Okay.
issues, so.
Okay, I don't hold out a lot of hope for getting $50,000.
Yeah.
Maybe we just let you not send that to us. But I'll ask.
Well, one question about getting money like that, or things like that, is if you can tie it to a return on investment.
Yeah.
In other words, a likely return that by getting the information out, we can expect X number of people to behave differently, and that would have an impact on what we spend in various programs. And again, we can have economists do this, and as you know, since economists aren't licensed and regulated, we don't know whether any are any good anyway. We could get away with that.
Fighting fire with fire.
But I mean, again, the notion of some return on investment
Well, I
for
think-
an expenditure makes sense.
This isn't a state investiture though. This is, like say, this is an individual's retirement account investiture. And if they go through that, then it's a state investiture because they'll end up in GA and Medicaid and.
Well, that's the whole point, is
Yeah.
at some point in the event that people aren't able to do that, there will be an increased cost that will affect
We are the
taxpayers.
safety net.
And again, it's just trying to do at least a rough calculation to show this actually makes sense to do.
Maybe when we talk to the SHIP people who actually talk to people that are making the decision, maybe they have a sense of how many people regret the decision they made at Shambhala.
There's actually some, we did a survey, we did the Act 99, report, and I wish I had it pulled up, but we did a survey of individuals kind of saying what, and it was a great response. I think there was over 400 people, which for a voluntary survey was pretty impressive, and the insurers worked with us, and it was actually really great. But there's really valuable information in there about why people are choosing Medicare Advantage, why are they satisfied, are they not satisfied?
Can you send that to Zane?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll all have weekend meetings.
yeah, and it's, yeah, and there's, so that was really helpful, and then that also, there's also a link in there to a federal report that has more nationwide data on kind of what they're hearing from individuals around Medicare Advantage and Medicare generally, so that was really informative to our report and our discussion, so,
Okay, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. no problem.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions? No?
No,
You just throw.
no to pass.
Oh, okay. I don't either. I don't know.
Let's go if you ensure.
My pictures, I'm sorry.
Okay,
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 thank you very much.
great, thank you,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Submitting. I'm trying to clear the board here. The one we have up there is 236, which is the aesthetic. Removing the aesthetic requirement for the siting of, basically solar, but it would also include windmills. And, and aesthetics can't be part of the criteria. It's the one I haven't found us coalescing around a solution.
I hope we table it and allow in favor of allowing the town planners to do that work. So it's done before the application.
Well. I mean, so I have a document somewhere from the regional planning commissions that shows all the current guiding maps that steer renewable energy siting toward very specific areas regionally. I would hope we could remove some of the barriers for those sited areas. I think we keep hearing, we know we want it here or there, so we should put it there, but there are lots of maps telling us this is where it's ideal, and then they still have to
Could
fight.
you find that map for us?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking in town designated areas, but I think regional designated areas might not be the same as town. But if we can find a regional
Because
map,
we were talking about map in economic
we've got
development,
a lot of maps.
we
I
asked Charlie Baker.
Okay, I
Yes.
asked if you couldn't, when you were doing the map, if you couldn't do,
Yes, and Charlie said, here's the 8. Charlie or Groveman said, here are the 8 things. It was Charlie, okay.
he's in our community.
But we talked about it, Charlie Baker
Right.
in committee.
Okay, in your community.
Because we did the bill that did energy. siting.
Right.
Okay, so what did you do with energy siting? Have you
Well-
done it?
In our committee.
Yeah, I mean,
The ones at Exxon 174, so the the whole construct was choose your own adventure at the town level. We have statewide energy goals. They can be broken out per municipality, sort of like a capita, per capita basis. And then you say, okay, so your town, if it's gonna contribute to that, would have X, Y, Z amount of renewable generation happening. If it's all, some contribution to local generation. Then if you amend your town, you create a town energy element in your approved town plan that is certified by your RPC. In the beginning, it could be
Okay.
the Department of RPC, but now it's just RPC. Then if there's a question that goes before the PUC and the town weighs in, it will have substantial deference, which is really the board needs to have a compelling reason to override the town's
Right.
position. Whereas if you don't have such a certified element in your town plan, it's due consideration, which the towns with due consideration would say, we're not getting nothing.
Yeah.
So that was the big road. So we said, okay, if you'll step up and plan for it, then you'll have,
Okay, so
Influence
how
it.
many towns have done that?
It's a
And how
good
many
question.
sightings have
I don't-
gone into the sites that the towns have planned for? Because I was thinking of saying no aesthetics if you put it in the town designated spot.
so
If it's
it's a great question. And, these conversations from you the last couple weeks have made me think, it'd be great to hear, how is that working?
Yeah.
In your committee, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, how well.
Would
it
you
is for you.
you can bring the answer to us?
I will
Or
share
we can
anything
have
you like.
somebody, we should have someone in. If you can help us figure out who that is, to find out how that is playing, because if we've got 20 towns that have a site, and nothing's been built in the site. It's kind of useless saying you won't have any aesthetic criteria if you build in a town designated site.
Right.
And then we ought to ask the development people,
Sure.
businesses, why they aren't locating in a town designated site.
The other thing is doubler is that then you need to layer in, what's the infrastructure capable of handling?
Yes.
And so, yeah, you could build in the spot, but if it was a very
But
expensive
you better
upgrade.
run
transmission,
tree-based power out.
Then someone might say, well, the town doesn't make money. We have to
Right.
do this connection, the connection costs, interconnect costs are so high.
So
So
why
there's-
are we asking?
So
Maybe we
it's
should
just that
only
we need
ask
more than
towns
one
with
map.
three-phase power to do that, which might cause someone to tear it out.
Yeah.
But,
Somewhere at the intersection of all of these things, we should say, you have a glide path to
some,
the renewable energy we need
Right,
to
but
get to
until we
whatever
have
percent.
that, I'm-
state.
the only intervention citizens have is that aesthetic criteria. And,
Or it does not follow the town plan.
right, but
Right.
if nobody's
Bradford, for example.
But if nobody is. Nobody's building in the town plan sites. Then it's kind of useless to ask the towns to plan for it. Because, yeah, you don't have three-phase power, we went through that with farmers when we first started. This whole program and methane digesters, and we put money in to run three-phase power out to the farmers so they could get their cow power out to the net.
But I do like the idea for something, I come from a South Burlington perspective, and if South Burlington clearly state in their regulations, their town plan, that we want to allow solar panels over parking lots. I like the idea, if that's in the town plan, to restrict, to take away that aesthetics component. So that business owners with this new RES standard, or that can see more motivation, market forces wanting to put in more solar panels, will see a clearer path. With those solar panels over parking lots, they know the neighbors can't complain and tie it up in PUC. So that I'm attracted to as a.
Perhaps we take away even more ways to challenge it than just aesthetics. I mean,
The town clearly said,
Yeah.
this is where we want it.
Right. But South Burlington, I'm pretty sure it's three-phase power everywhere. And we
We got
have a
some
big
parking
thing
lots.
about distributed generation and a policy that we want the generation to be close to the use. And for South Burlington, that works, because you're probably losing everything that gets generated. But we get out to small towns. They don't have three-phase power. You got three-phase power?
No,
on
you
Main Road?
want it close to the.
Yeah.
In-
Like I have it close.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? but that's not the only place you can have it in town
Right.
plans.
Is your traffic light have to be phased out?
To-
It only has two colors.
There's.
I don't see what the problem is, and when you eliminate aesthetics, they can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Unless the town has a thing that says, we want them to go where we have, we've sent sewer and water, don't send them where we've sent sewer
Yeah,
and water. That's, and now we're back to the town.
right, okay,
And the town, I mean, we've talked about the town plans with other maps because there is a public process associated with that, so that is your time to weigh in.
So if you simply say aesthetics don't count, then guys like Tom Garden are not gonna go around the neighborhood and talk to neighbors before they
they're just
come
gonna
up
stick
with
it
a
up.
plan, because why bother?
Yeah.
To do it where damn well please.
So it's good to talk about town plans and spots, but I think we need to know, A, how many town plans, and I'll ask Central Vermont Regional Planning to come in. How many town plans have done it? And how many, electric facilities, any kind of generation facilities have been put up on those spots? And then the why and why not.
And
And
that
I-
had and that Smith had a bunch of statistics on
Yeah.
the town plans and that focused on that question.
But we also had Dingledine saying, even in a fairly large sophisticated towns like Warren, they were struggling to know how to write this in the plan, so it got given, due deference. Yeah.
She also suggested that places where there are town plans, the witnesses don't tell the truth and the town officials don't
Yeah.
know whether or not they're telling the truth. But
So
now I'm overgeneralizing, but maybe you're wrong.
all town governments are not equal. Many of our towns have 5, I don't think they go down to 3 select persons.
It's tending to go the other way.
Yeah,
There are some-
yes.
Many towns still
But-
have 3.
But no manager, no business, I mean, they come in one night a week, one night every 2 weeks, do the business in the town and go home. It's a pretty big struggle for those towns to do town plans and to just know how to do this. And I think we've put money out for them to upgrade
We did
their,
500,000, 3 years running, I think, to help support.
upgrading their
Plus
bylaws.
VLCT plus the RPCs. So Peter Gregory would be able to talk.
Okay, let's see if we can get Peter Gregory, it would be, and we'll find out,
That was technical assistance help, had that energy element.
okay,
The other leg on the stool is, there's differential pay rates in that metering. So if you're in a preferred location, like a parking lot or roof, then you could earn a little more. So there were a lot of things sort of trying to incentivize and nudge things to certain.
right, but they haven't, I mean, we limited them to brownfields or for a couple of years because we were producing more than we could handle. And we didn't get a whole big, I haven't seen any parking lots covered,
Parking lots are expensive.
yes.
That's the problem.
Right.
It's a lot of structure to have something as big as that, that's,
Yeah.
this deal.
Pretty heavy thing.
100-mile-an-hour winds.
Even on top of
you know,
like a commercial building, it's expensive.
Lot of trucks
You
have
have
to get
to
underneath.
properly
Yeah.
girdle it.
And then have to be small.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it, but
There is a way to do it.
it's just costly.
We had a bill last year before, and it did away with aesthetics for those. But some of the proposals was it could go out within 3 feet of the roadway and not have to do any landscaping or, and I'm thinking the co-op down here who has, they've got some flowering crabs along the edge. They've got maybe 4 solar panels in there. and you can park and charge.
I
But
don't know if you've checked those out, the Mirror Mountain Co-op parking lot charging. But an arm, it's sort of like a giant arm.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, there's a lot of expense in structure, you know,
yeah,
compared
there's
to
a
like.
big
putting it in a
pergola,
field.
heavy beams.
Echo Center has them, they have to go up really high so that your plow trucks can go under.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I mean-
where you got a differential making more attractive financially.
I mean,
Can't hit it with
The
your
issue-
car and shatter the panels.
I think the issue is the businesses that are putting up solar panels and their businesses want to do things as cost effectively as possible. They aren't losing sites because people win on aesthetics, but it is slowing the process down, and time is money. And I think we're trying to find that balance between saying you can just stick this up anywhere, or you can stick it, you know, and if you do it here where we want you to be, then it can be fast and free. But it's, I think towns identifying a spot where they won't see it and be okay doesn't mean it works to the energy committee, the energy businesses needs, because the spot that's okay for the town. I mean, some of the town, they need 3-phase power, they need a transmission line nearby, there are certain specifics they have to have. And I think probably we should get Renewable Energy Vermont in and have them tell us from their perspective why we aren't seeing a mass growth on town designated areas, and what is it they need in order to make the cost effective.
I think we already know this, but if I could add one thing on top of that, so yeah, I definitely think the public process aspect of it is great, it's also great clarity with court documents, so the other major benefit of town plans, and I think we all know this, but. I've bought in property 3 times in my life, and every time I did, a condo, a house out in Essex, and a house I'm in now. The realtors would know, based on the town plan, what is likely and possible permitted in the adjacent property, so it sets expectations, so people know. Fully with clarity, what could come in next to them, and so it knows that they can't complain, they won't complain as much if solar panels come.
They can complain.
They can,
They
it's
can.
manageable.
Well, it's next to
And the
Disney.
farms have about
But it's on
that.
So, yeah.
It's on them.
Right.
Yeah. No, if a realtor knows a slaughterhouse could go in next to you and does not inform you of that realtor probably loses their license, or at least for the time. Full disclosure, anything you know or reasonably should know.
there were a lot of complaints about people along the railroad tracks when we restored rail service
Oh, great.
Yes.
through South Pearlie. Like, railroad tracks next to your house, I wonder if they would ever make them.
People buy houses near airports expect it to be quiet.
Yeah, we haven't built any, but when they first went up, that definitely was an issue. I know it was in Boston. Now we've got the jets that take off. Okay, we will try and get in Mr. Gregory, we will get the renewable energy people in to tell us what they need, and we'll see.
I want to consult with Charlie Baker too, because he mentioned the energy map birthday.
Okay, so maybe we'll see if we can get Charlie Baker, and he's from
And maybe
Chittenden County
they
Regional
might-
Planning.
I
Nominate each
CC'd you
other.
both when I asked him for that list.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
for it.
so we will do a little more deep dive in here and see if we can find something that does protect our Vermont view sheds and at the same time allows us to put up enough solar. I get a little nervous about windmills. I think they're beautiful, but I would not like one on the hill behind me just because of the vibration. I own the hill. But I could see where, and I had one neighbor who on the other side of the hill put up, sold a lot. That was a cell tower they put up. But it was like 50 feet from the other guy's back door, and the guy that owned the land was over the hill and he didn't see it. So
Perfectly placed.
perfectly placed for him. the guy that wasn't getting any rental on it.
Right.
Didn't think it was so perfect. But windmills, I'm a little, the vibrations, I'm just not sure don't do some harm.
This is a philosophical question. All right, if someone puts up something that is in your view or vibrates or otherwise has an effect that may reduce the value of your property, should someone pay for it?
I think that's the bottom line of the question.
I mean, there are,
Not prohibit it, but actually pay for it because you suffered a loss as a result of that particular act.
I mean, if we actually took your land by eminent domain, we have to pay.
Mhm.
If somebody takes that would be a really difficult law to do.
But there are people who could certainly calculate the loss of value, you know, what's this house worth before the solar field and what's it worth after the solar field that destroys its effective view.
I don't know how we treat that differently than Velco power lines or, you know,
Well,
I mean, like,
again, maybe-
we've all
maybe-
made a social
maybe we
compact
shouldn't.
that
That's
that's
just something that
okay.
maybe we haven't really thought about.
Well, I think, yes,
You appeal your property taxes.
it goes down.
Well,
to
the property taxes is all well and good in terms of the effect, but it's the effect of the value.
Right.
Property taxes are based on fair market value.
Well,
It does take, but that's always, I think, power lines have gone under the public necessity.
Mhm.
We were talking about eminent domain for the bike path in Montpelier. And I was not at all sure that a bike path met my criteria for public necessity. You know, but from.
But roads,
Best investment,
you know,
yeah.
roads are ugly, we have them.
They've
so,
always, and they kept that, but bike paths are new. And
Okay.
it was the greatest
Yeah.
$1 million mile we ever put in.
well, I mean, you could argue, for example, that a road, or for that matter, a power line that serves multiple people might be in, you know, something that is a public good and et cetera. Whether you can say that for a privately owned solar development, I'm not sure you can say that.
It is not publicly owned, it is owned by a private business.
What happens in cities with skyscrapers? You put a skyscraper up next to another one, you affect the view and value. How do they get through that?
Well, yeah, a skyscraper, yes.
You block the view of the Hudson River.
Mhm.
So do they pay? Do they?
No,
No,
they
I mean, some people own air rights.
Those are private. Okay.
Yeah, there are
well,
air rights.
much different than you.
Well, there's an argument
Well,
about Montpelier about.
If you were,
air
you could
rights
trade
over-
your ability to develop
I mean,
somewhere else.
there's arguments, has been for years about air rights over interstates in
Mhm.
Boston, they build over.
Skyscrapers should actually be built where there's been design for skyscrapers.
I don't wanna play lawyer either. It sincerely is calling for a competent legal opinion, and we don't have a lawyer.
Sounds like the
No,
beginning
it's
of
just a committee discussion.
legal opinion.
But I'm gonna do an
Just trying to figure out
amateur.
which one is the
My-
least bad.
My understanding is that, and this is with federal case law, is that to qualify as a taking, a government action that is a taking has to more or less deny the owner of the property the use of the property.
Right.
A loss of value is not a taking, but we have a movement of several years now, which is presently suspended, but may resume, of judges being appointed on the recommendations of the so-called Federalist Society as opposed to the bar. And they are chosen for their ideology. And so that may change, we may find the court deciding that it is a take. Right now, my understanding is that, again, it's a take, if the government does it and the owner really loses the use of the
Right.
property,
Yeah.
it's a take.
Reasonable, yes.
Yeah, but otherwise, that, you know,
I love GPP.
the noise from Route 107 has diminished the value of my property, I just look at it.
No, taking, no, 'cause you can still use your property.
Yeah.
I can still use it, yeah.
But yeah. the
Do you
traffic-
remember the situation with the singles on East Avenue? UVM upgraded some kind of energy system, UVM Medical, and they lived across the street. They were very involved neighbors. He worked at the university. And he experienced this high frequency noise that no one else experienced. So UV have negotiated some kind of payment to help them move. I don't even know if it was legally required, but they tried to do something for them.
Like the airports do at the end of the.
Right, yeah.
If the people that
Cheaper
were in
than
the
a
windmills
lawsuit.
had bought out the houses.
Yeah.
They would have saved themselves a whole lot of trouble. It probably would have been cheaper. Sandy Gray.
So, as we've been talking about it, Annette Smith has sent us some information about parking lots with canopies, including the Stratford Technical Center in Rutland.
So they are parking lot canopies.
Parking lot canopies that,
Does she have the cost?
well, that's part of the whole deal.
Right.
They're not, those costs don't reveal.
Right.
It's a private transaction,
Right.
it's not disclosure.
Right, these are public, these are not a regulated utility, they are a private business developing a resource that they sell to a regulated utility, but as yet, as far as I know, they aren't regulated, except by land use planning. So we will look more into this and see.
If we wanted to talk to one of the larger developers in the state, Chad Farrell.
Right.
Burlington. Might build a 200 bike lane, he could be a good witness.
Can you send his name or his contact?
And I like to find my emails from somebody who was a part owner of the car dealership in Manchester and wanted to put solar panels on top of the car dealership roof at his own expense and was stopped by.
Oh, it's Manchester.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find his name because he said.
No, there are towns that are special.
Instead of talking solar panels in the parking lots, I mean, they would also provide sun cover, so in hot summer days, the middle of parking lots could get really hot. They also shield you from snow, from rain, so you can have it over pathways, and decorated lights too, like anomaly times and stuff, so.
You need your dog in the car in those places.
There you
On the summer, not worried about it.
Did Bill call the cops?
go.
Gosh,
So what if someone proposed a 200 car parking lot in Victory? So that they could put solar panels on top.
I think it would just be cheaper to put the solar thing. They have to pay a run-off fee if they.
That was too much of a wise this.
Yes, it was.
Even for me.
Charlie did send us
I saw
that
that. I
information.
just gotta get to it in my email. Okay, we are still undivided and undecided, but we will get all the planners we can in here and we'll see what the issue is with the town sightings, those that have been chosen. I would be amazed to see that they've gone into town areas. I haven't heard of any big celebrations. We went into this town area and everything was great. And find out exactly what the businesses prioritize when they're picking the site. And see where we go from there. Cause I have a feeling an awful lot of our towns wouldn't be appropriate. The ones down in the hollow and up in the mountains and, you know, I can't put solar panels on my house. I get sun for 2 hours in the afternoon. My neighbor has solar panels and she will have crocus next week and I have snow. It's just the sun comes over. My brother did solar installation. He said, move.
Oh, okay.
I said, can I, what would it take for me to put in solar panels? Move. But I could put a windmill up in the top of the hill.
Right.
I wouldn't see it, but the farm out back would.
We are with the other committees of jurisdiction. I don't know if you all know, we just started taking testimony today on a right to charge your electric vehicle bill in committee. The reason it's in our committee is because it's largely landlord tenant and condo association law. I don't think anything in this bill would cover, like what you said at Hunger Mountain, a solar panel attached to an EV charger.
Yeah, I mean,
Is allowed.
Yeah,
Actually.
I'm not overly concerned with this because it basically says if the tenant wants it, the tenant has to pay the
Right.
cost of putting it in. And it's just, You know, but if you've gotta rewire the whole house, cause it doesn't have enough service to service a charger.
That's a hardship we'll look at.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be pretty expensive
Right.
in a lot of places, a lot of landlords won't let you in because they probably have non-include power and all those old
Right,
water reflectors
right.
made out of downtown.
But I think it's a good opportunity to look at new construction moving forward and making sure that if you have a large parking lot, you have charging capacity, and I imagine that doesn't run into an aesthetic
No,
question anywhere.
And one thing I'm worried about, and this came up in transportation, is they show photos of charging stations on green banks. Now, here's the problem with that. Green banks, you get two cars pulled up, and it's easy to put them there because it's easy to dig into soil.
yeah,
But then
They-
two
okay.
cars, you can't access from both sides, so you really want it out in the middle of the parking lot, so you can have, you know, like a circle of cars, so you don't get charge rage when you're waiting for another car to come in. Does that make sense?
it makes sense, but you gotta
I
mind,
don't know. I can't remember what
if
we
the
did.
place is already built, like a condo,
Okay,
and your parking space is in a
Few years
lot,
back.
like the places near me, there's 4 spaces for the ones that don't have garages. You have to dig up the road to get the power to your spot. We should ask what the cost per unit is.
well, what if they did do a solar panel on the charger, does that like reduce all the wiring costs?
Well, you'd have to buy the solar and they'd have to allow the solar panel. Unless
That's
you're one of those
interesting.
little ones like they have on. So I don't think you could charge with a small
With a
system.
small
You'd have to
solar,
have
yeah.
some way to store.
Right, not for it, yeah, not like,
But ask,
Tier.
when we're talking about new construction,
Yeah.
and especially affordable.
Yes.
Um,
can they put
That's-
solar panels next to their charger?
well, I've already asked Gus, because I was getting pushed as why
Yeah.
we weren't getting solar panels when we were building.
Affordable housing.
And it was an extraordinarily high amount per unit to do that.
Right.
And I think, and we want to do affordable housing, but every time,
Yes,
you know, if you look
absolutely.
at any neighborhood plan I've seen around here, it requires cement sidewalks with brick curbing, with paved roads.
Right,
I must have over $500,000 house and I don't have any sidewalks.
does
If we
anyone,
Add to it, you know, what we talked about this morning in the finance committee, of adding to it the cost of installing electronic charging equipment in each unit. We should refer bills like that to the committee to increase the cost of housing and delay its construction.
well, let's just say you had a landlord who wanted to
That's
provide these chargers and it was somehow cheaper for them to co-locate solar panels next to the charging stations than to run
Yeah,
some
they
major
can-
line. Can
Well,
they do
it's
that?
not the landlord can do whatever he wants.
Hmm.
In this
Well-
case, in this bill,
Yeah.
it's the tenant
No,
that's
I know,
going to pay.
yeah,
And
But it's the tenant who, in effect, is driving the process. The process is one that will typically last longer than the tenant.
oh, yes,
But beyond that, there's the issue of, well, what does it cost to do? Then you gotta deal with the issue of, you know, the electrical entrance is large enough to be able to support, then you have, you know, you have all the add-on costs, regulatory environment and so on, and we've got a housing crisis right now. Which it's difficult enough to get a house built when you start adding additional requirements on, particularly where it's in effect mandated that one party or the other can drive it. You know, you are defeating the purpose of what we're doing with the home bill.
well, the thrust. The intent of this bill, as I understand it, and we'll make sure the language aligns with the intent, is that this would create eligibility for a lot of the programs that help you subsidize charging stations that currently are unavailable to tenants. And pretty much unavailable to landlords because they're not the homeowner consumer. So unless we create some kind of agreement path between landlords and tenants, they're completely left out of accessing
Well,
these.
yeah, but when you in effect create another mandate for housing, you're defeating the purpose of getting housing built quickly and less expensively.
this isn't.
And, you know, and looking at the crisis we have right now, I think it's bad policy.
I think if we haven't talked yet about mandating the charging stations be.
Yeah, I know that I should.
I think, I don't think you're going to get enough tenants with enough money to pay the cost.
And-
I can see saying that, no, the
Right.
landlord can't say no
Yeah,
if you pay the whole
Right.
cost.
right.
If you
And in
pay the
fact,
full cost,
if
but
you
that
pay-
typically, at least the bill, obviously the bill can change. But
Yes,
the bill that I read this morning is the tenant asks the landlord to do it, and the landlord, provided the tenant agrees to the cost of doing it,
Yeah.
has to do it.
yes,
Now, that is a cost that extends beyond typical tenancy, because you don't require the tenant to be there long enough to in fact pay for everything.
well,
There's an unamortized cost that exists beyond the tenancy.
there are a lot of costs that exist beyond the tenancy that the landlord could.
But
Take them to
this is an
collections.
additional one
Right.
that's stated in this bill, of which the landlord has no choice.
But they don't, nothing gets built until they created an agreement they're satisfied with about.
Sure, well,
payment.
they create an agreement regarding payment, and the payment may be made to do it, but on an amortized basis. It's not a payment for the full cost of it.
We'll hear from the
Right,
list,
send
but
us.
I just wanted to let
List of the
presentation and
towns.
agreements of note.
But the only thing I was making, as we had the discussion about adding solar panels and so on, every time you add something to the cost of new construction, in a time in which we have difficulty getting new construction done, you make new construction more costly and more difficult. And the ability to achieve the housing that we need right now, more difficult.
I doubt this will take effect anytime soon in a way that impacts landlords or I guess developers creating new units. I'd like to talk to them because I imagine a lot of developers are looking at adding charging stations for large parking lots.
So if it makes economic sense for a landlord, I would certainly say, yeah, go ahead and do it. If it makes sense to you, both in terms of time and in terms of cost.
Yeah, everything makes more sense to look at while the Inflation Reduction Act is sending out subsidies for EV charging.
It's cheaper.
We're getting on, Brooke Dingle now, just sent us, I think all of us, and not all,
Everything you add on
towns that
doesn't mean anything that's fantastic.
approved energy sites in their towns. And this town, Barrytown, Northfield, Waterbury, Waitsfield, Middlesex, Plainfield, and Woodbury. I don't think that's half the towns, the capital city doesn't, Barry City doesn't, but Barry City is like 3 square miles.
Right.
It doesn't have it except maybe
Right.
rooftops, but
If
they don't have.
If we go down this path, my sense might be that someone like Joni Miller from VNRC would find it interesting to provide benefits if you put the locations in your town plan, because she manages all those climate action committees.
Yeah.
Where people get really invested in, I want my town plan to allow solar in certain places, town energy committees.
I think that's a good idea.
It's an incentive.
Okay, I think we're done.
You get that, okay?
Huh?
That's it.
Let's-
Yeah, she should come by and say hi, but like, I think she's just taking the time and stuff. A reminder about 4 o'clock Wendy's.
Interesting is that from folks, I just looked at it, they're from all over the state, every county except Franklin County. Single signatory Franklin County.
Thank you.
So that was the last-
Elaborate on where you.
Oh, yes, Bess O'Brien's film Just Getting By, on food and housing insecurity is showing in the pavilion at 4 o'clock.
It is, they gave a number.
It's just 111 state.
I know,
And that's pavilion.
yes, I should have just changed it to.
Half is 133.
Yeah,
I finally saw that means nothing happens.
Right.
It's like, okay, so what's another number of something?
All these
Yeah.
years here, I still don't know the address.
I know, we're,
Is it a pavilion?
yeah, we're 155 in the state.
State
Oh, the
House?
state is 115.
133.
That's good.
It's a state house feature.
Yeah, that makes sense.
133 is half.
Okay. Do you remember C-SPAN came to do like a democracy thing and I was a new legislator? And
Is anybody
they
in here
instead
on
of
the
George
Acres Drive
they
committee?
said play Acres Drive, because it's like the American thing. And so I emailed